Welcome back to Echoes of the Hunt with Victory Outdoors. I'm your host, Curtis Goettsch. I am joined today by our guest, Tom Mitchell from Dex Fingerlight. Hey, Tom, how's it going?
It's going great, Curtis. I really appreciate you having me on the podcast and really blessed and happy to be here. Thank you.
All right, awesome. Appreciate it. Hey, so we got a couple of topics we're going to talk about today. I think first is going to be local deer management, and on a broader scale, we're going to dive into kind of some of the issues that we run into when we let politicians manage our deer herd. And we're going to try to get not too political one way or another, but we're just going to talk about how we believe that hunters do a better job of managing all animal herds and species and the content of different species through ethical hunting methods, and how we do that through a historical and traditional way versus kind of the eradication that we're seeing. And this is one of the things that I've talked about with a lot of other hunters and that kind of stuff, especially the younger generation. And one of the things that they have to understand, and we see this in Victory Outdoors, we obviously are trying to film our hunts and we're trying to shoot bucks, and we're here in Iowa, the land of giants and that kind of stuff. But by the same token, we're wanting to take doe management seriously and that kind of stuff. And one of the things that we've seen it ebb and flow here in Iowa. The population goes up and it comes down, and that's impacted by many things. Some of it is out of our control. Some of it is in our control. Some of it is controlled by the state. And we've seen for sure over the last probably 30 years or so with CWD how other states have taken, that challenge differently and in different directions versus the way like I've seen it here happen in Iowa. And then also just the fact of the population management. And so one of the things that in biology that we talk about is carrying capacity. Carrying capacity is the amount of deer or any animal per square mile that the habit can sustain. And one of the things that we don't always understand is that carrying capacity far exceeds usually our population, because population in the Midwest and potentially the places in the South, one of the things that we have to manage for is the impact to the human population. And so that is more what we manage for is, and that's kind of where the politics get involved, right? Because you're going to have special interest groups that are going to they're going to want to see the deer population lower for one reason or another. And they are different reasons. Believe me, like there are many, many different groups out there that have their own reason on why they'd like to see the population lower. But it all comes back to one thing: the tolerance level of the public. What will the public put up with, and what is that tolerance level? And that tolerance level that for a deer population is far lower than the carrying capacity that the actual habitat could persist. And so one of the things that a lot of times people will use against, killing, more deer, when people are saying, hey, we need to kill more deer, one of the things that they will say is, well, we got to kill these deer because we got to keep it a healthy herd. We're doing it for the health of the herd. Well, yes, we do see different things come through, and EHD has been, a massive killer. It strikes and it wipes out large portions of a population, but that is something that is not really in our control. We do have different things that we can utilize that can help us mitigate that, and so there are different tools out there that we have. But in large part, if EHD is going to have a outbreak, it's usually driven by the weather. So we have basically areas that dry out, and that happens. So, but I don't want to get down that path. That's for another day. But what I want to do is I want to go back to where we're talking about local municipalities or states where they're taking an active role in the management, and they're even, in some cases, hiring contractors to carry out these mass killings of deer. And so they're wiping out deer herd for one reason or another. And a lot of times it has to do with that threshold the public has, and they think, whether it's true or not, they believe that they are going to do that in order to appease the general public. And so what we want to make sure is that people understand exactly what's happening, what dollars are being spent. And Tom here from Dex Fingerlight, Tom has a very unique and close to home example of this, and where it's being maybe the public doesn't really actually understand what's going on and what their money's being spent on.
They
Tom's
don't.
going to talk. Yeah. Tom's going to talk about that a little bit today. And with that, Tom, I'm going to turn it over to you. You are from Wildwood, Missouri, which is just west of St. Louis, or basically it's a suburb of St. Louis on the west side. Looks like it's a population of about 35,000 people there. At least that's what the internet tells me. But
Yeah, it's 35,000, 67 square miles, and we're about 35 miles west of St. Louis City.
okay. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, and let's kind of talk about kind of a situation that's come up that's close to home there for you, where your local municipality has hired contract killers.
Well, let me back up a little bit on that because I want to make sure that your listeners and viewers know that I'm relatively qualified to speak on the topic. I've been a bow hunter since 1977. I've been managing my own property in Missouri, 360 acres, to enhance the habitat, to increase the carrying capacity of the white-tailed deer population successfully. My neighbors do the same thing. We have a relatively loose-knit group. Some neighbors don't cooperate, where we share intelligence on the population. We share our objectives. We share the fact that we do in fact cull, C-U-L-L, does, to make sure that we do have a balanced herd being 2 to 3 does per every buck. And we don't want too many does. We don't want too many deer, but it's really the does that are the problem. And you have to ensure that you have that carrying capacity and that you don't run the bucks ragged with so many does being bred as late as January, sometimes even later, because if the doe is bred too late in the breeding season, then you have a late born fawn, and that fawn has a harder time to survive because there's not enough ample natural forage in August when it's born, or July, or even later, and it really becomes a runt and never really gets to its full potential. So we want to balance the herd for those reasons, for population and also for genetic diversity. So I have some experience doing that successfully as a bow hunter managing this land. I live full-time in Wildwood, Missouri. I've lived and worked here my whole life, and over the years, things get developed. We can't stop development, housing and commercial. And when you develop, you push natural habitat out, and that pushes the whitetail deer and other wildlife into other areas, and they get condensed. So these suburban areas, rural areas, get overpopulated in pockets. But Wildwood's unique because there's densely housed areas, and then there's huge wide open glades and forests and streams, and the Merrimack River flows through here. And it does have the carrying capacity. There's actually farmland as well. A mile from my house, there's 70 acres of soybeans that just got harvested. And that farmer, by the way, gets nuisance tags, and that has also reduced the population. But Wildwood, and I'm not complaining about Wildwood trying to address this problem, there are pockets in these densely housed areas where the deer are overpopulated, and it's very difficult to access for hunting or to actually hunt. I've hunted these areas before. And you're literally hunting while kids are playing in the basketball court next door, or somebody's blowing leaves. I've had people jog under me and walk their dogs under me, never knew I was there. So there needs to be some level in Wildwood of management through culling. But what's happened is they overkilled. So I'll give you the example. In the northern parts of the city, the past 2 years, they used a outfitter called White Buffalo out of Connecticut, which, by the way, is somehow registered as a non-for-profit. So they pay no corporate company income tax at all because they're non-for-profit, yet they bring in millions of dollars every year doing these culling operations. So Wildwood contracted with White Buffalo. They bait deer in winter with corn. They spotlight them, and they do headshots and kill them in the head. By the way, spraying brain matter all over the soil, which if CWD is an issue, I don't know why they're doing these headshots. Hit them in the shoulder. You and I both know if you hit a whitetail in the shoulder, they usually drop immediately, and you're not spraying brain matter everywhere. Wildwood has contracted with White Buffalo. They paid White Buffalo so far in 2 hunts, the past 2 winters. Are you ready? You want to know what they paid White Buffalo? $150 per deer, a total of $474,000 to kill 661 deer on about 10 square miles of the city. They want to do another 20 square miles to kill X number of deer. I'm estimating about 1,000 to 1,300 more deer. The problem is the area where they're culling doesn't have enough deer now. There are literally no deer. So last summer, I'm driving through these bean fields, and you know how bean fields should be in summer. Zero deer, zero deer, zero deer. So I call a friend of mine and I said, I won't mention his name. I said, friend, where are the deer? And he said, they killed them. And I said, who killed them? He's like, the city. So I dug into the records. And what I found is the city had estimated 72 deer per square mile. The Missouri Department of Conservation said you should get it down to 20 deer per square mile. Wildwood said, we're going to do 40 deer per square mile. Sounds reasonable enough. There was some kind of fuzzy math between the 20 and the 40, but now I understand Wildwood, in fact, does want to reduce the population to 40 deer per square mile. But for some reason, they decided instead of taking the 427 deer, which is on a graph, which I think you'll show later, this graph is from Wildwood's own data on their website. They were supposed to have taken 427 deer from these 10 square miles. They took 661 deer. If they're estimating in a general number 72 deer per square mile, and they took 66 deer per square mile, that leaves 6 deer per square mile. So there's one particular council person who is very vocal, and that's okay, that's his right. We're Americans, that's a great thing. I feel more American doing this than anything else. But they don't acknowledge these numbers. They actually try to push it off and say that we don't know what we're doing. The quote in the council meeting 2 nights ago was that every bow hunter thinks he's Robin Hood, but he's really Ray Charles. Very disrespectful, very arrogant. Another quote was, bow hunters are like kids shoveling snow on driveways. We need snowplows to clear the streets, referring to white buffalo. So there's this level of arrogance. And I think this is really what bothers people. It bothers me because we are a free nation that gives consent to the politicians to govern us. We're the ones that give consent. They report to us. This is America. It's not vice versa. Politicians do not grant freedom. God Almighty grants freedom. The politicians are elected by the consent of the people to govern our society. And this arrogance has got to stop. And I think that's really what bothers people. You don't see a real good interchange. At these council meetings, each person's given 5 minutes to speak. There's no interchange. There's no debate. And then we leave and they debate amongst themselves, which we can attend that, of course, or we can view it on Zoom, YouTube. So we're trying to even change that process a little bit. I think maybe we'll get a special meeting with the council to do so. But we're on the ground. We're making this effort to show them the facts, their own numbers, and what they've done to this herd, which is virtually eliminate our local herd. Now, I don't hunt in Wildwood. My friends do. But it bothers me that a local government, in somewhat of a borderline tyrannical fashion, can come in, say they've done a deer count, which was done in 2020, by the way. They're using 2020 data as their baseline to eradicate a deer herd. Then they use local police officers to spotlight deer at night in April in ag fields and say we still have an overpopulation problem. Well, you're going to have an overpopulation in an ag field in April in Wildwood, Missouri, because all the deer are there licking up the residue of corn and soybeans and whatever greens are coming up right now. That's the only food that's available besides buds. So we're trying to educate the council and the mayor about management of whitetail. Do your culling. There are pockets where deer need to be reduced in population, but do it with a conservation mindset. Respect those who have elected you, or you will not be a city council person much longer.
Yeah. So, I mean, you bring up a lot of good points there. And one of the things that, really rings true when I'm listening to you talk about this is it seems like, and I'm going to say I'm obviously an outside observer, but in looking into kind of some of what you've laid out and kind of some of the research I've done before this, it seems like that, I want to know what, you quoted the numbers that they used and those kinds of things. There should be a document that they should put together or should have put together that is based off of biological facts that would explain the culling that needs to happen in that area, specifically based on biology. And then obviously you're going to have goals like we talked about. There are definitely goals that would have been outlined that might exceed, like we said, the carrying capacity. Like the habitat is always going to be able to carry more deer than what the public, would tolerate, right? And that's fine. But the point being is you have to find that balance where you have still, the wildlife, for viewing and those kinds of things, because there's a lot of urban hunting zones set up here in Iowa. Like every major metropolitan area that I'm aware of has it. And yes, it's mostly geared towards antlerless deer herds, taking does. However,
Yeah.
I will say this, one of the ways that a lot of these municipalities got bow hunters to actually do this and participate, because the argument you're going to have is, well, we can't get bow hunters to do this. And that's kind of what I alluded to previously, is the argument becomes, okay, but we can't get anybody to come in and do this. And that's the argument that I've made. Like, if you're not willing to go out and shoot a doe or two every bow season, and in Iowa, we have lots of donations. Like, you can donate a deer to lockers that participate, and it gets used to feed the hungry, or it gets utilized in our prison systems. So Iowa prison systems also will pay a processor to grind the deer and add a little bit of tallow, and then they use that in their food programs for the prison system. So those are two different ways that Iowa, I know specifically, will utilize it. They'll use it in their food banks, and then they'll also use it in the prison system to help offset some of the costs there. And so one of the things that is very important is, okay, how do you get bow hunters how do you incentivize them to do this? And one of the things that, like, I know that the city of Cedar Rapids does, I'm not sure if Des Moines does it, but the city of Cedar Rapids did it, is you could earn a buck tag. So you had to go 2 years, you had to shoot a doe the first year, or at least one doe the first year, and you had to record it with the city. And then you had to shoot another doe the second year, and then that earned you a buck tag. Well, urban hunting, because there isn't that much pressure, there are some big old boy bucks rolling around there, and so that incentivized people to go out and do their part to call the herd and get some of those does taken out of the herd to get them the opportunity to shoot a buck. And so it's kind of an earn a buck situation there, that some municipalities have taken advantage of, and that is a way to incentivize bow hunters, because and this is like what I will tell the younger generation, and this is the fear. We have doe tags that are allotted by county here in Iowa. So where we have a higher deer population, we have more doe tags available. And so we've seen where we don't have a centerfire rifle season in Iowa. However, in the last 5 years, they've started doing a centerfire rifle season in counties that have leftover doe tags after January 10th. And so there's some problems there, because what we run into is you have shed bucks that have shed out by then that are walking around, that if you're not an experienced hunter, and no disrespect to anyone in particular or anything like that, but if you don't have experience, and even experienced hunters can make mistakes and end up shooting a shed buck, that's not really the intent. The intent is to fill an antlerless tag and shoot a doe that will help that population goal. And so one of the things that we're blessed with here in Iowa is, and we do have some really good biology behind our methods. Now, that doesn't mean that politics doesn't get involved and special interest doesn't get involved. It does. But the reason, what I point out is, if you're not a fan of that centerfire rifle season late in the year here in Iowa, then I hope you're doing your part during bow season and shotgun seasons, our normal traditional seasons, and you're taking a doe. Because if you're not, but you're against that centerfire rifle season, they want these deer, they want those quotas met. They want to make sure that they're filling those tags. Those doe tags are there for a reason. And then they monitor the population density and then they adjust those tags every single year. Now, it is adjusted by the legislature, so there is some politics involved there, but it is also done, I know for a fact, because I know the people who do it. They work with the biologist. The deer biologist is giving that input and making those recommendations, and very rarely does it vary from that. And so there is biology being done. And so the one thing that I say is, if you hate that, then make sure that you're doing your part to make sure that there aren't deer tags available, doe tags available come January. And if there aren't, then you don't have to worry about centerfire rifle season in your county. And so, and this kind of speaks to something that you talked about more on a standpoint of, you have to actually do something. You have to actually take an active role in this. So whether that's actually going out and filling a doe tag, or whether that's actually going out and attending a council meeting, you have to actually be involved in this if you want your voice to be heard. So there's different ways to do that, but sitting on Facebook or any other social media platform and lobbying insults towards one municipality, state government agency, or anything like that doesn't do any good. You've got to be involved. And so make sure that, especially, you young folks, figure out when those meetings are and attend them. I know for a fact the DNR seeks, here in Iowa, the DNR seeks input. They have public meetings set up. I've gone to those public meetings. Most people are older than me. I'm 45 years old. Most of the people are older than me. Very few are younger than 40 years old. And the other thing is those public meetings, they're sparsely attended. And so you have an opportunity to attend those and give your input. And you know what? The people who are willing to go sometimes aren't the people who are pushing the hunter's agenda. You're going to have people who are from, special interest groups that want to see more deer killed in a particular area, and they're going to attend those meetings, and they're going to voice their opinion on that. They think that there needs to be more deer killed for one reason or another. You have to make sure that if you feel strongly about something, that you're willing to do the work.
Well, we just witnessed a little while ago somebody who said that very thing, Charlie Kirk, that if you believe in something, you better have the courage to stand up for it and make your voice be known. And to your point, social media is wonderful to build awareness, and we use it to build awareness. But social media is not a vehicle or pathway to effectuate change. If you want to effectuate change, it requires boots on the ground. It requires intellect. It requires exchanging ideas face to face with people and shaking their hands and finding common ground to in this case, let the city achieve their goals. And by the way, they do have a biologist. They have two biologists, one from the state, which nobody trusts now. Nobody trusts the Missouri Department of Conservation to do the right thing with deer management. This, I will say, I think that they're trying to do the right thing. It's a difficult thing. There are a lot of deer in certain areas, and you must have hunters who spend hours on Facebook complaining. Show up and kill does and do your jobs and do your thing. Otherwise, if you're not going to show up and do that or show up to these meetings, you honestly have no right to complain because you're not helping the cause. So you've got to show up. But the city does have a biologist from the Missouri Department of Conservation, but they also have a biologist from White Buffalo. White Buffalo should not be advising the city on any policy. They want to kill as many deer as they can, as quickly as they can. They want to net the deer over bait piles and shoot them in the head while they're trapped in the net because it's more efficient killing. I don't blame White Buffalo. I'm a business person too. I want to sell as many Dex Fingerlights as I can, right? They want to kill as many deer as they can, as quickly as they can, to get paid their $750 per deer, which I think is actually going up. But they do use a biologist. But they're not, in my viewpoint, the city's not taking into account the minimally viable population that's required to have a healthy herd. We're past that point in my local 5 square mile area of minimally viable population. And what I mean by that is you must have a minimally viable population to rebuild the herd. 6 isn't enough. I haven't seen any bucks locally. All summer, all spring, even now, I'm seeing 1 doe and 2 fawns. They can't breed. Maybe the fawns are the bucks. I don't know. But you know what I mean by that.
Yep.
So they've taken it to the point of no return for minimally viable reproduction. The second part is I understand the city side. There are car accidents where deer are hit by vehicles, but they only blame the deer. And it doesn't take a very smart person to drive around these areas and see people are distracted and they're speeding. And these are 30-mile-an-hour zones for these back roads, and they're hitting deer not just because of the deer, but because they're not paying attention, they're speeding. Second, there is bush honeysuckle that's invaded this area. The bush honeysuckle overgrows the roadsides, and frankly, the city doesn't do really an adequate enough job to trim these roadsides. So you have deer feeding on the side of the roads, which also propagates vehicular crashes. And they could save a lot of money just by trimming those roadsides and then hitting those bush honeysuckle with a permanent herbicide to kill it. But there are other municipalities. You mentioned Cedar Rapids, Hendersonville, Tennessee. They work hand in hand with hunters to manage the deer herd and maintain it. The city of Wildwood say that they're interested in doing that, but we don't see the evidence of it. They say we want the hunters to step up. Well, we're stepping up now. We're giving you ideas. We're giving you alternatives. Cull your deer, but reduce the numbers and then let the hunters do their thing with a cooperative with the city. And here's the cooperative. Number one, the city sets up a landing page for landowners to register for access and hunters to register for access. The hunters must carry a minimum insurance policy and indemnify the landowner and indemnify the city. Okay? Very easy to do. They do it now with white buffalo. Let the landowner be indemnified in the city by the hunter. So the third part of that is, how do you incentivize people to do that? Well, pay them. Money talks. Out west, they have what's called block land management. Every time a hunter accesses a private ranch, that rancher is paid $10 for every access. The city could do the same. Now, what they can do a step further is pay the landowner for every doe taken off of that piece of land, and maybe pay the hunter too, but the hunter is getting his or her reward by the access and by the meat, okay? And the third thing in Wildwood anyway is they minimize the access opportunities because you must have 3 acres or more. Reduce that to 1 acre or combine parcels to 3 acres so neighbors can co-op with neighbors and manage the population that way. And people say, well, it's so inhumane. You kill a deer with a bow and it runs over to a neighbor's yard and yada, yada. Look, I'm not saying that's not a problem. It is a problem. But it's not justification for eradicating a deer herd. And then the last thing I'll mention on this is, once again, I think politicians who don't really understand an issue must do their homework to understand it or abstain from your vote. Because you are voting in the city of Wildwood, the council members unanimously voted for this eradication, not knowing what they were doing. You know, in the Bible, Jesus said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." I quote that to myself every day about these council members. I think they think they're doing the right thing. And some are listening. We have swayed, I think, a couple of them to vote in our favor. And our objective is simple. One, do a recount. Because their baseline count is not accurate. It's from 2020, and they're going in with police officers and spotlighting deer at night in food areas to see how many deer there are. It's not accurate. And I know it's not accurate based on my observations locally. They want to come in this area where I live and kill another 50 deer. And I'm telling you, there are not 50 deer here to kill. So what does the head councilman say? He says, well, we'll see. We'll have them go in, and if they don't hit their number, then we know there weren't enough deer. That's not the solution. That is the complete eradication of our herd, and it's not acceptable. So do the culling, but do it after you do a recount with thermal drones. And I have a company that can do that with a thermal drone to give a much more accurate recount. Number 2, have white buffalo reduce their numbers, reduce their quotas, and make them kill does only. Minimally, have them kill a ratio of does to bucks based on this new count, which will in fact separate the gender of the deer. And if white buffalo kills a buck or kills a buck over their quota, they're not paid. And guess what? If they're not paid, they're not going to deal with field dressing the deer and donating it. In this case, they do donate the meat, and they donate it to the zoo and the wolf sanctuary. The third thing is to involve the hunters. Go back to this, what I say, this bounty, if you will, for does, and give the landowners an opportunity to get paid for allowing access. And that really should do it. I would throw another thing in there. You mentioned in Iowa they have kind of this late season to manage does. There's no reason, if we're giving access to this white buffalo company out of Connecticut to come in, and by the way, I don't think they pay for tags. I don't think the city pays for tags. I don't think they're paying for licenses. They're not contributing anything financially to our conservation. Have the hunters do that. Let the hunters bait. And if the hunters can bait after January 15th, which is when our season ends, just for 2 weeks, test it. See how it goes. Because a deer over bait in daylight is a much more relaxed animal, and the hunter's going to make a much more relaxed shot, and it's does only. Or allow the hunters in these municipalities to bait in December to late January. There's better ways to do it. It's got to be done better so that we have our natural resource preserved.
Yeah, I think there's lots of different methods and techniques that are probably a little more palatable than, giving a contractor $500,000 of taxpayer funding to go in and just wipe out, whatever it was, almost 700 deer. And I mean, one of the things that, I look at that dollar figure per deer and it's like, where do I sign up?
You have guys ready to go.
You know what I mean?
For a lot less.
Exactly. Well, like you said, some of them would just do it for the access, just because I hear that is the biggest complaint that I hear from young hunters. I mean, even some older hunters that are the same age as me. I guess I'll classify myself as an old hunter. But one of the things that they say is it's harder and harder to get access and not have to pay dearly for it. I mean, and I can
no pun intended.
Yeah, right. I mean, one of the things that's changed the most for me in the last 10 years is 10 years ago, I wasn't leasing land to deer hunt, but I had a lot of farms that I was still getting permission on the old fashioned way, knocking on a door. And I still get some farms that way. Don't get me wrong. I don't have to lease everything. But far and away, most of my time is spent on the land that I'm leasing. And for good reason. I mean, I can control that to some extent. I can control who can come in there, who can't. A lot of the farms that I have permission on, so do other people. And that's fine. I don't have any problem at all with sharing with other hunters as long as they're respectful, and I'll respect them back. But access is huge. To be able to have a municipality be able to work with landowners to provide access to hunters that are more than willing to come in and take deer, that is something that I think is viable as a possibility. And then the other things, late season, here's the thing. You mentioned the deer damage. And so, farmers and those kinds of things will get doe tags for depredation. So that's depredation tags here in Iowa. I don't know if that's what they call them in Missouri or not.
Same.
But yep.
Yeah.
So you get these depredation tags. Now the depredation season, it is way longer now. It's does only, but you were able to shoot deer well before any other season opens. And you're able to shoot deer well after the season closes on those depredation tags. Now you can shoot, and then all of them have to be reported. The depredation biologist has to come and visually tag them. So you're not whacking, that's how it works here in Iowa. And so there's a depredation biologist. And so that's something that could be deployed that time frame, right? So it allows access, but it also allows a broader range of time. The baiting deer and that kind of stuff, it's funny how polarizing that topic can be amongst deer hunters, just us ourselves amongst deer hunters. Obviously in Iowa, we don't allow baiting as far as dumping.
Here. Yeah.
For one, what I'll say is we don't allow it in terms of dumping, a pile of corn or some sort of deer feed, and then hunting over it. However, we do allow food plots to be specifically planted for that reason to hunt over them, which a lot of people would say, well, isn't that baiting?
Well,
You just,
let me stop you there first, if you don't mind. Let me just stop you.
yeah,
Here's my analogy on baiting deer versus a food plot. They're not comparable. And the reason they're not comparable is baiting would be, let's say, compared to driving through a local fast food joint and getting a burger. Very convenient, very tempting. Boom, bada bing, done. Food plots are like cooking a gourmet meal night after night. It's a big difference. And look, I'm not criticizing people who are legally baiting in their state to kill big game. I'm just not a fan of it. I prefer fair chase because I prefer challenges. It's why I developed the Dex Fingerlight. I didn't have to do it, but it's like, this is something I can do, so let me go try to do it. And we've done it very successfully with my sons. And so I enjoy those types of challenges. But in Wildwood, they are baiting. In these
yep,
areas where they cull, they are baiting against the law. They're spotlighting against the law. They're using high-powered rifles with suppressors on them in a local suburban area with women and children around. After the season, that's against the law. But they have special permits to break the law. Governments give themselves special permits to break the law. Why are we, as we the people, not part of that let's break the law together group? And the reason why is because the arrogance of some of these government officials that don't think we the people can self-govern when in fact we can. And they need to be a little more respectful, as I said earlier in your show. But anyway, I wanted to jump into the baiting issue.
yeah.
And the last thing I'll mention is the city administrator for the city of Wildwood. I read body language and tone. You know, body language and tone is 93% of communication. Words almost don't mean anything anymore. It's body language and tone. And the body language and tone, this arrogance from some, not all, from the city administrator about how they can bring in white buffalo and kill 14 deer in one night versus hunters and how long it takes them to kill 14 deer. Again, forgive him, Father, for he knows not what he does. The difference is hunters practice fair chase. We're conservationists before we're hunters. We're ethical. We practice fair chase. The reason why baiting isn't legal in Missouri is because it would kill too many deer. So white buffalo goes in one night, kills 16, 14 deer over a bait pile. And he scoffs about how efficient they are. Well, of course they're efficient. They're breaking the law. We're just trying to change the thinking of the politicians. They're not outdoors people. They don't really understand. And I'm not criticizing them for that. There's things they do I have no idea how to do. But we just need to get them educated and get them thinking that this is a natural resource that legally does in fact belong to the state. You know, the animals belong to the state before they belong to the people. The animal doesn't belong to the person until the person tags the animal. But here's what I will say overall. They actually all belong to God Almighty. And we are, quite frankly, commissioned by God Almighty to be stewards of this earth and be stewards of the land and be stewards of our wildlife. And I just hope that this council will understand that and realize you can still achieve your objectives by lowering the population and have a long-term plan with the hunters and be motivated, city. Be motivated to do it. Just as motivated as you are and as organized as you are with white buffalo and these mass killings. If they put that energy towards a hunting program, it would be successful, I guarantee it.
Yeah. Yeah, good stuff. I mean, it's one of those things where hopefully you guys can get a group together and kind of help educate them, those councilmen, the ones that are willing to listen, and then I mean, obviously some of them aren't going to change their mind, but if you can get some of them on your side and you can get them to see a little reason, maybe you guys can get something going there and see if you can get a more natural way of management rather than bringing in a contract group to come in and kill X number of deer. So,
well, we are doing that. And can I plug the group real quick?
yes, go ahead. Yeah.
So it's on Facebook. It's Wildwood Conservation Alliance, WCA, Wildwood Conservation Alliance. And it's a group right now, about 45 people. Look, again, it's Facebook. Nothing's going to happen just by posting, but it's a very efficient way to communicate facts. And we are, in fact, communicating facts. We're communicating directly from the Wildwood website. I have the contracts from White Buffalo. I have the invoices they paid, the $474,000. So we're dealing with facts, and we're not here to make enemies of people. We're here to conserve our wildlife. But yeah, it's Wildwood Conservation Alliance on Facebook, and we're looking for input from people that might have fresh ideas. You've given me a couple right here with these cities. We should be able to contact these other municipalities and see, how are their programs going? How are they working? What did you learn? What would you change? And nobody from Wildwood wants to do that, and they should be able to do that. So yeah, thank you.
All right. So one thing I want to talk about before you go is I want to talk about the Dex Fingerlight. So mine's set on green. So there are three. Mine turns back on at green because it has that memory built in, and green is what I normally use. And guys, I'll tell you, this is the way I wear it. So I could just operate it with my thumb there. It's got 3 different modes, but it's really handy for us when we are out and about. You know, we carry more gear with us than the average bow hunter. I can tell you, like, if I'm going to go in and bow hunt and I'm not carrying camera gear and all that kind of stuff, which hasn't happened in probably 25 years, but when I carry all that equipment in, you always need a little bit of light because we go in early because we need extra time to get everything set up so that when the deer are on their feet, we're ready to roll the camera, roll the film, whatever the case may be. And so, you know, when we're getting all set up and it's, you know, pitch black out, I need a little bit of light. Well, one of the things that I don't use, and I never have, is, at least for that, when I go in to hunt, is a headlamp. I don't use a headlamp because it's way too much light. I do not need that much light. I need a very, very little amount of light to set up all my camera equipment, make sure that my arrow gets knocked correctly on my bow, all of those things. And so one of the things that I absolutely have to do is I need a little bit of light, and this light is perfect and I like the green, but this light is perfect for being able to very easily give me just that amount of light that I need to see what I need to do and then put it back. And, you know, like one of the other tools that I've heard that's been used is like a cell phone. But, you know, I mean, my cell phone that's going to take my whole hand. Like I'm going to have to use that whole cell phone in order to create the light. Whereas I can use my hand still and have the light where I need it, and I can still be working on everything, and I'm not dropping stuff out of the tree. I got to go down, get hot and sweaty, go back down the tree, come back up the tree if I drop something or I drop my phone. This is very easy light. It's moldable, so it will fit on anyone's finger. It's really, really, really neat. I've been using it all this year. You guys got this to me, I think, in July, if I remember right. And one of the tips that you gave me was, just put it in your pocket and see how much you use it. And that is a huge thing. I did not realize how often I would use this until I just threw it in my pocket. And it was like, oh, well, that is awesome. Super handy. With that, I'll turn it over to you, and you kind of tell us a little bit more details about what is Dex Fingerlight and how it came to be.
No, it's funny because when we developed this, my sons and I developed it. We started developing it about 3 years ago, more than 3 years ago. We have 3 U.S. patents now. We're patent pending in 42 countries. We have distribution in Europe. We just launched in March, by the way. We have found a target audience or a customer base with hunters. We actually found a really good customer base with aviators as well. The National Police Aviation Service for the UK and Wales called us before we finished production and ordered 75 units. But yeah, it's called the Dex Fingerlight. So Dex Fingerlight, which you can see at fingerlight.com. It's available on our website, fingerlight.com. It's available on Amazon as well. We're actually running a sale right now on our website, but I would suggest people take advantage of that because they can take that sale that we have and apply your promo code for a limited time, which I think is Victory15, right? For 15% off, Victory15. So you're going to get a really good deal, and we offer free shipping on any order $75 or more. The beauty of it, you touched on it, is it's just fast, easy, and convenient. The reason why we developed it is because I don't wear headlamps. I hunt as stealthy as possible. And arguably people say, well, deer don't get scared a lot and deer like this and deer. I don't care. I want to be as minimally intrusive as possible. So when I saw this, and by the way, it was invented for surgery, not deer hunting, but we developed it with a rugged, waterproof, durable outer case. It comes, and you can buy the carrying case separately. And as you mentioned, this bendable ring, which we call kryptonite, went through several iterations of engineering, 14 different iterations with finite element analysis. A TPU, it's a copper core that's surrounded by a soft TPU that's bendable. So it's kind of like a Gumby toy. And no one's ever done that before. No one's ever made a ring that's a one size, we say, just to be accurate, one size fits most. But we had a helicopter pilot. She's a little petite young lady. She actually has a size 6.5 ring, and it fits her too. And it fits up to a size 13 ring, finger size. So waterproof, rechargeable. So what's great about it is you've got this USB-C, got the C charger, which is your standard charger now. It runs for up to 2.5 hours of runtime. So we've got the dim light, which I like to use when I'm traversing a trail. It's got very bright light, which can be used for blood trailing. We had a hunter send me a video yesterday. Beautiful buck he took with his bow. I was really surprised how well it worked for him, the blood trail on a short double lung. And then it's got the green light, which that's my go-to as well. And that bright light, by the way, it casts the beam 36 feet. So this is not just some little trinket. This is a tool that we've built, and it's new. It's a new category. It's people like, what's a Fingerlight do? What a joke. That thing is a gimmick. It isn't. It's a tremendous tool, and once you use it, like you have, and like I appreciate you taking my advice and putting it in your pocket, because I keep mine in my pocket. I use it in daylight. Little things, hooking up the grandkids' car seats in the back of my truck, looking inside a fuse panel in my truck, whatever it is, looking under your desk, dropping your keys, whatever it is in dark, dim areas, even in daylight. And then, of course, for hunting. So it's very useful without using a headlamp. And our little slogan we came up with, there's a better way to use your head, wear the Fingerlight instead at fingerlight.com.
Awesome. Yeah, one of the ways that I found that I used it is I've got a Jeep Wrangler, and anybody who's ever had a Jeep Wrangler knows that you have to also be a Jeep Wrangler mechanic if you're going to own one.
Oh boy, sorry.
And so, well, I mean, I've replaced a lot of stuff on it. It's an older one. It's more of a toy than it is a daily driver at this point. But
nice.
One of the things that I've replaced the clutch. I've replaced, which obviously isn't that hard. Right. I was shocked. I would have never managed. I'm not a super mechanical person. Like, I'm not one that dives into engines, right? But I was able to figure it out. I also had my father-in-law to help out, who had done it before. And so that gave me the confidence to be able to tackle it. But I was, in particular with this Dex Fingerlight, I was changing out the alternator in the Jeep. And I found myself like sitting there trying to see all of the wires and figure out, because I was actually looking at the alternator to make sure I was ordering the right one. You know, it's like, going to order a new one. I know that's what the problem is. I need to get a new one ordered, but I'm looking at all of the pieces on it and everything, trying to see down in there. And I pulled out the Dex Fingerlight, and I was able to look and see exactly where I needed to put that light, rather than, you know, I mean, my garage actually has pretty good lighting. I have a bunch of can lights in there. It's really well lit as far as garages go, but still, when you're under the hood, so many shadows and everything, and I just couldn't see. I was able to put that light where I needed to see it so I could make sure that the connections were correct. You know, I wanted to make sure those connections, that I was ordering the right, you know, part for the Jeep. And so, you know, that's like a non-hunting way that I was able to use it. I did give one of these. I gave one to my father-in-law, who is an aircraft mechanic. So he spends 4 days a week working on aircraft. And so he uses this a lot every day, much more often than I do. And, wow. and he loves it.
Wow.
It's great. One of those things and I said, well, when do you use it most? I said, you know, when is it that you actually use it the most? And he said, when I'm trying to look behind the manifold on an airplane, because of the way most of them are situated, you can't really get a flashlight or anything up in there, but you can get your hand in there and you can get this little light in there, and I can actually then put that light where I need to be able to see, and then see what I need to see. And I was like, well, that's pretty sweet. I don't understand it because I'm not an aircraft mechanic. My wife oddly is, but I'm not. And so both were in the Air Force.
Mix.
But yeah, at any rate, that's kind of how I've found alternate ways to use it other than hunting, but it does come in remarkably handy for me when I'm hunting, whether it's just walking through the woods, making sure it helps me make less noise. And when I can see where I'm walking, I can walk that path where I'm not kicking over tree limbs. I don't have to step on limbs that I can actually see. And I'm actually more quiet moving through the woods to my stand than I otherwise would be. Because I can be honest with you, I didn't wear headlamps. I don't take flashlights. And when I go in, I'm not using any light at all. That can be dangerous, and it also just makes more noise. To be honest, and people can say all they want, oh, you don't spook deer like that. I can tell you from experience that I am more than one time have spooked deer going to and from the woods in the dark without using light, and I'm tripping over stuff, I'm breaking stuff, and I'm a very deliberate, cautious person trying to get to the stand as efficiently as I can, but I'm trying to get there as quietly as I can. And the Dex Fingerlight does assist me in doing that. It allows me to be able to see how I'm getting in. And I hunt a lot of mornings. I hunt probably 60% of my hunts are probably morning hunts, and especially during the rut, because a lot of times will sit all day unless it's hot. If it's 80 degrees, I'll probably get down in the middle of the day and take a break because movement will significantly decrease. But I like to hunt all day. So if I'm going to hunt all day, I'm going to get in early in the morning, and I like to get in very early. I want it to be dark. I want to set up everything and be ready to go when that light hits and when that sun comes up and it starts to get, to that gray area. A lot of people like to walk in the gray. I hear it a lot from a lot of guys, especially guys in the hunting industry. They like to walk in because they can see and they're not making noise. But they're also moving to their stand at the same time deer are on their feet moving. And that's a problem.
Yeah, I hear that too with gray and hunting in daylight. Getting to your spot in daylight. To each his own, of course, but
Yep.
the real benefit of this for the stealthiness is that you can wear it under your hand. And that's what I like to do. And I want the light pointed right at my feet to see, yes, for safety, but also not to step on something that makes the noise. Because I've walked right past deer sometimes bedded and didn't even know it if
Yep.
I'm quiet enough, and the wind, of course, is in my favor. But it's got a lot of really unique benefits to it. I like to use it when I hook up my lifeline without moving my head around. Of course, climbing, but most than anything, and you hit on it very early in this conversation. It's just fast and it's easy, and I don't need a constant light. I just need a little bit of light here, a little bit of light there. Use the moon. Maybe I'm familiar with the trail. Maybe I'm familiar with the ladder stand or whatever I'm climbing. I just want a little bit of light here, a little bit of light there. I don't need a lot of light. And I want to be reaching up to my head all the time to try to find my headlamp control to do that. So I would just leave the headlamp on the whole time. And like you, I quit using headlamps years ago. They're just inconvenient. They're bulky. I'll still use a headlamp on a long deer trailing job if I need to do that. But I appreciate it very much. I think we're really doing well. We just launched in March. It was and has been and still will be a grind. But it took, when we're month 7, month 8, month 8, it's taken that much time just to get a little bit of traction. And now we are getting a little bit of traction with our audience being hunters and aviators. And I feel a lot better than I did in April. I even feel better than I did in July. So it's a grind. We've built a good tool. We'll make it better. One last thing I want to ask you, if that's okay.
Yeah.
What do you think about green light over red light?
To be honest, I don't think I've ever used red light. I think I've had headlamps in the past that have utilized it, but generally speaking, the only thing I can think of is years ago I had a quiver. I don't remember what brand it was, but I had a bow quiver that went on my bow that had a light set up on it, and it was green. And so that's the only experience I've ever had with that. But so I guess green is the one thing I will say is I feel like green is better suited for the human eye as far as to see versus red. Because red light is darker. It's just a darker light, and whether deer see it or not, I don't think that really matters because it's all light. So whether you're using red, green, or white light, either way, the whole premise of this is very small, and it's a little, like you just said, a little light where you need it, when you need it, and it's fast, it's efficient. You get your light, you do what you need to do, it's off. Versus
Exactly.
a headlamp, putting out how many ever lumens they do is like all of a sudden you're lighting up half the woods with that thing. It's like this beacon, and so I feel like, for those guys that have used headlamps in the past that don't like it and are like, man, I really wish I had something that wasn't like that. I think this is
Now they do.
exactly, this is the ticket right here to be able to put that light where you need it, when you need it. It's fast, efficient. You're not doing a bunch of movement either. And that is huge, I think. And so I don't know that, if red light was an option, maybe hunters would prefer that. I don't know. Me personally, I don't care either way. I think green is just fine for me. I think if I had the option, I would still use green because I think it gives me better visual ability to see.
It does. So when we did our research, because we debated this, whether to go green or red, we couldn't do green and red because if we did green and red, it would make it a much larger device. So that's one. Two, we did surveys of hunters, and I was really surprised by this. Hunters preferred green over red almost 3-1. I was really surprised by that. They actually preferred dim white over red. And then when we found out, well, why don't you like red? They said, because I can't see with red. I can't see depth. I don't know if it's a rock or a ditch or a log. I don't know what color I'm looking at. And it just doesn't light things up well enough. So to your point, the human eye does see better with green. Now, the argument is deer see green better than red. That's not completely false, but they don't see enough of it to have it make an impact. And I have found outfitters like, I don't want to drop names, but somebody called the
That's
public,
fine. You can. Yeah.
the hunting public.
Yeah,
I
that's
noticed they're all using green. I'm like, okay, well, those guys know what the heck they're doing. And they're using green. That's enough for me. So we decided to go with green. And we did green also because of the aviation. Although we're not certified night vision goggles, this is a really brilliant green. It can be used with night vision goggles, but we're not certified for that yet. But it's another reason why we went green. Plus, I just think green's cool. The other reason, besides hunters thinking that deer don't see red, which actually I don't think is true because I'm going to probably use my game cameras for this. I've got trail cameras that are just glowing red and the deer bolt. They bolt. So they see something. Now that's infrared, but they see something. But it is a red color, right? So I think it's arguable about deer being spooked by red, but I don't want to say it's a myth, but it's just something people got used to, and here's why. When LEDs were first invented, red LEDs were much less expensive to produce than green LEDs. And over time, green LEDs became equal with red LEDs. So now a lot of companies are going to a green LED, and that's happening now in the firearms industry. They're going from a red dot sight to green dot. And the reason is the human eye sees the green dot much better. But getting back to the hunters, we're not going to convince people that deer don't see green. All I can suggest is we have a guarantee. And if you use this product and you don't like it, you can send it back to us. I think it's 30 days. And then, of course, you have a lifetime guarantee on the ring and the construction of the device. But I think it's somewhat of a myth that you only can use red light to not spook animals. And the beauty of this, though, is that you can wear it under your hand and you can hide it. You can direct the beams. But I was curious what you thought of the green light, so thank you for that.
Yeah. So, hey, so to the audience out there, if you guys are interested or intrigued, I would encourage you to check out fingerlight.com. Will take you to your website, and that website does a great job of explaining the construction, any questions you might have about this. And then if you guys do decide to make that purchase, you can use the code Victory15 to get yourself an additional 15% off. They are actually running a sale right now, so it is already discounted. You're going to get a further deeper discount by using Victory15. So check that out at fingerlight.com. And hey, Tom, I had a great time talking with you today. We talked about some really, really awesome local deer management type challenges that you personally have going on, but I'm sure others across the nation are dealing with these same challenges, whether it's at the state level, county level, or the city level. These different municipalities having their different takes on it, about what is deer management and how to efficiently manage those herds. And so obviously there's lots of different takes on it. Some are better than others. And hopefully you guys can get something worked out there in Wildwood, Missouri, and get something, work with them to do something that's better for the deer herd rather than just going the eradication route. But I appreciate your time. Thank you guys always as tuning in to Echoes of the Hunt with Victory Outdoors. I'm your host, Kurt Goettsch, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.